Hello and welcome. It is the Eneco Tour, the penultimate round of the World Tour in UCI Cycling for 2016. It's the 12th edition of this increasingly popular bicycle race, stage race over 7 stages. Bolsward in the Netherlands is the first port of call for the riders, just a little bit shy of 185 kilometers. And the teams have been gathering here in this Dutch town over the past few days. And pretty excellent team presentation. Team organisers going with the, well, it's the Dutch way, isn't it? I think we saw that in the Vuelta a couple of years ago. That was the way to do it, and they boat them up to the presentation. And it's a pretty much a mouth-watering collection of riders that the organisers have assembled. They've even hired private jets to make sure that everybody can make it through and make it here for the Eneco Tour, the 12th edition of this race. 2 stages in the Netherlands, followed by a tour through Belgium in the only World Tour race that has dual nationality. Tom Dumoulin, all eyes on him. Plenty of time trialling in this year's Eneco Tour, and plenty of flat stages as well, with one eye on the World Championship in Doha to come. And that naturally has attracted a very strong field, including Captain Thomas of Team Sky. He steered the good ship Sky to victory. He'll need to get his time trialing legs on if he's going to come up with the big result. And of course Team Orica have come with a very strong lineup as well. Michael Matthews will be one to watch in the sprints. LottoNL-Jumbo as well. Naturally all eyes from the home fans on the local squad. They've gone quite a bit quicker in this in today's stage than they did up to the team launch yesterday afternoon. One person that wasn't there, of course, was Peter Sagan. But the organisers have ensured that the reigning world champion, and there is Captain Thomas, piloting the good ship Sky up to the presentation. Michał Kwiatkowski among their lineup. And pretty much all the World Tour teams have come, with a few exceptions, have come with a really strong lineup. It is pretty much a mouth-watering collection of riders. Greg van Avermaet, the new and reigning Olympic champion, in fine form, eschewing the delights of the European Road Race Championships to make sure he's perfectly prepared for the battle to try and improve on his 2nd place from last year's Eneco Tour. And well, Edix Quick-Step. All eyes will be on the all-conquering squad from Belgium. Tom Boonen is in flying form in the sprints. He's rediscovered his bunch sprinting legs of recent weeks. And of course Marcel Kittel among their number. Who are they going to line up for in the gallops during the week? There's the Roll of Honour, such as it is, kicking off back in 2006 with Stefan Schumacher. And through to most recent victor, double winner Tim Wellens. Well, an interesting parkour for Tim Wellens to see can he make it a triple, as he got the time trialing ability, because there are 2 time trials during this week. The first of them, 9.6 kilometer individual time trial tomorrow in the town of Breda. And then there's a team time trial later on in the week, Friday. 21 kilometers of team time trialing in Sittard-Geleen in Belgium. And the town of Bolsward enjoying the appearance of the riders in Friesland. Population normally of 10,000. Bit of a glare off that one, isn't there? It's gold abounding for Greg van Avermaet. As well he might, celebrating that success in Rio a few weeks ago. And the question is, who is going to challenge Van Avermaet for the victory? Well, among them, of course, Peter Sagan, the organisers, that private jet, bringing the new European champion. Well, he's resplendent in the rainbow stripes. This is his final event in those rainbow stripes. Always accepting, of course, that he manages to win in Doha in a couple of weeks, and then he'll get another year. Otherwise, he might revert to that European champions jersey. And this is the big riders making their appearance on the front. Edvald Boasson Hagen, Tim Wellens, of course, the reigning champion. The gunfires, they send the 174 riders representing the very cream of World Tour cycling into battle in this first stage of the Eneco Tour. 184 kilometers. And it's a long circuitous route back to the finishing circuit. As always and as usual in the Eneco Tour, there's plenty of finishing circuits. So it works its way through the south of the region and back onto that finishing circuit. The finish line is reached with what? The first passage of the finish line comes with 39 kilometers to go, and then it's 3 times over the finish line. And the circuit's 17.3 kilometers. Picking up live pictures, they've been out there for a while now. They're down to the final 70 kilometers of racing in this first stage, and it's a group of 5 riders out front. They've been clear since the very early stages. Matteo Bono of Team Lamprey in the middle here in the pink and blue colours, the familiar colours of Lamprey. At the back of the group, wearing dossard number 207 for Team Rompot, local rider Brian van Gotem is in there. Frederick Backart just in front of him. Wanty Group Gobert, the blue and white colours. On the front, Laurens de Vries, familiar figure from this part of the world, Belgian rider. Big strong rouleur with the Astana squad, 27 years of age now. And Bert van Lerberge is the 5th member of this grouping from Top Sport Vlaanderen. This is Bono. Been around a while now. A one-team man. Has his entire racing career at the top level has been with the Lamprey squad, and he's due to move on to the new team, reconstituted squad with Chinese support for next season. And it's a strong group of riders that have 2.5 minutes advantage. Maximum advantage for these riders, well, was 3 minutes and 40. So the sprint team's really not giving them a whole lot of rope, and very much keeping a weather eye on what's happening with those 5 riders up front and making sure that they manage the gap to the riders up front. Alongside me to run the rule over the riders, survey the scene throughout the week, is former British road race champion Brian Smith. And Brian, it is a pretty exciting lineup and an interesting parcours that the organisers have selected for this year's Eneco Tour. Yeah, they've changed it ever so slightly over the last few years. It's the back end of this race is normally very hard, and you know, Tim Wellens has won it in the last 2 years. It's, you know, split up quite considerably with you know, routes round Tour of Flanders courses, you know, Liège, Bastogne-Liège courses. But I think they're gearing it up because of the World Championships in Qatar. I think they're gearing it up as a kind of preparation race. You know, they've moved it from August to this time of year as a kind of preparation race for the World Championships, and that's why most of the sprinters have come here. It's an opportunity for them to kind of hit out a race that's kind of gearing itself up. So I think with the short time trials as well, it means that the you know, strong fast riders, because most sprinters can do a decent enough time trial. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, the changes that they've made, but they have geared it up to a lot of the sprinters, and that's why at the front of the peloton you can see a lot of the sprinters teams holding this gap down, because when we look at the route over the last few years, it's been tough, especially the back end. It's normally in 2 halves. Normally you do 3 stages in kind of flat lands, a time trial, and then three stages in hillier terrain, and the race splits to pieces. So it's a good change, but of course the last stage is always a brutal stage into Geraardsbergen, and you know, that will help shape the overall. But it's going to be an interesting race for the sprinters. It's time for a comfort break for some of the riders towards the back of the peloton. They're satisfied with that 2.5 minute advantage for the riders up front in the early stages. Sprint stage in the offing. We're going to take our first commercial break of the afternoon. Come back to us after these. Welcome back. We're on our way to Bolsward in the Netherlands. We're on our way back to Bolsward because that's where the first stage of the Eneco Tour of 2016 began. Well, quite a while ago. We're down to the final 65 kilometers, and the 5 riders up front well, managing a gap of just over 2.5 minutes. It's been pretty much constant now for the last 15-20 kilometers or so. The bunch satisfied with this. These 5 riders proceeding on towards the finishing town. Bolsward will be reached. For the first time, they'll reach the finish line with 38.8 kilometers to go. They've 2 full laps of 17.3 kilometers to do at that moment. The anticipation and the expectation is that we will have a sprint finish today, and that is particularly interesting at this time of year, because the expectation is that the World Championships, the World Road Race Championships in Doha, are going to produce something a little bit similar. It's a flat road in Qatar for the World Championships this year. They talk about the World Championships of sprinting being the final stage in the Tour de France. Well, this year the actual World Championships could be the World Championships of sprinting. Andre Greipel, of course, took the final stage victory in France earlier this year. And Jens de Buskera will be looking after him, and indeed Tim Wellens just in front. Wellens on bottle duty, interestingly enough, the reigning champion of this race, just in front of de Buskera, because I think they'll probably be thinking about looking after Andre Greipel today.
Yeah, he led out the sprint last year, and 3 riders came past him, Viviani being one of them. And Viviani not here because he's suffering from a bit of an illness, and Danny Van Poppel was second. He was riding for I think it was Trek last year. So you know, it wasn't quite normal for Greipel last year, you know, leading out. You know, the gorilla normally, you know, goes on to win, but I think he's on somewhat better form this year after coming out a very aggressive Tour of Britain. But Kittel, after the races the other day in Belgium, I think, you know, he pulled out due to illness. I think he was being physically sick on the bike, so we don't know how he's feeling, but obviously they've put you know, one rider towards the front to help out the chase, so it means that, you know, they are looking for the stage win, the first stage win. It comes with the leader's jersey. And you know, there's an interesting thing they've done over the last couple of years is put in the golden kilometre, and that comes with about 20 kilometres to go, and it's 3 sprints all within a kilometre, all 3 to 1 seconds. So it's not going to affect, you know, still the person that's going to win the stage is going to take the leader's jersey. But it's interesting, and I think with the time trial and the team time trial and the difficulty of the last stage, it doesn't really matter too much in the overall. But this year I think it could count, because I think the gaps are going to be somewhat closer.
Yeah, it could be interesting. The Golden Kilometres, it's called, introduced by the Tour of Belgium 1 year ago, yeah, just in 2015, adopted by the Eneco Tour and repeated again. Tom Dumoulin will be watching a lot of and seeing a lot of him today, but particularly tomorrow in that individual time trial, 9.6 kilometres. It's a big rendezvous for the Dutch rider on home soil. And he among some very, well, there's a classy bunch of testers in this race indeed. Rowan Dennis, Tony Martin, of course, back on form. Jan Izagir can go well in the time trial when he needs to. The likes of Michael Matthews as well can do a short punchy one. Well, there's a list of riders who will fancy it tomorrow, a list of riders who will fancy it today. And the Golden Kilometres we were mentioning comes with 20.3 kilometres to go, and it's basically 3 intermediate sprints inside a kilometre, and each of those sprints offers bonus seconds of 3, 2 and 1. And Brian, as you were saying, it could be of greater significance, because the parcours, while challenging and difficult, particularly on the last 2 days, have variously been described as Liège-Bastogne-Liège and Tour of Flanders. They're nothing quite as difficult as that, but they're very much in character, and in terms of the terrain they go over, the actual terrain they go over is similar, and indeed includes aspects of those 2 classics. But it's not quite as difficult as last year. So the expectation is that a lot of these sprinters, these strong time trial riders in Rouleur, will be able to get over those climbs and those challenges that are presented at the back end of the race. So therefore, well, they're going to have to go hunting for bonus seconds along the way. And the likes of, I mentioned Michael Matthews there. He can do a bit of a time trial, and a guy like him might go ferreting and hunting for those bonus seconds along the way.
But the time trial's short enough, the team time trial's short enough. Nobody's going to make up minutes, it's all going to be seconds. You know, looking at the stage, is flat today, flattish in stage 3, lumpy in a couple of days, but you know, it's a kind of Flanders feel in the last day. So if there are some seconds but you know, you can climb quite well. Like you know, Van Avermaet, don't discount him. You know, he's short enough, and he's got a really good squad here for Team Time Trial. It's like the World Championship team. So they've obviously come here with a view to try and win this, and so don't discount Greg Van Avermaet. He's the Olympic champion. He would dearly love to try and win, and I know he tried the other day in the Impany, but this is a big race. It's a World Tour race. You've got to remember as well that some of the sprinters will be thinking, well, if I can finish top 3 today, 10, 6 and 4, surely if I maybe try and pick up some seconds in these golden kilometre, I could then, you know, take the leader's jersey, because it's a really important race for, you know, the Belgian teams and the Dutch teams. You know, it's the, you know, the old kind of Benelux area, although for a few kilometres it does go into Germany, but it's predominantly in the Netherlands and Belgium, so it's very important for these teams, and that's why we're seeing Lotto Soudal in the red, LottoNL-Jumbo in the yellow towards the front. It's very important, and you know, we have got, because it's a World Tour event, we have got all 18 World Tour teams plus 4 of the second division teams, including Cofidis from France, Top Sports Vlaanderen, and Wanty-Groupe Gobert from Belgium, and Rompot from the Netherlands, which is a completely you know, Dutch team. So that's why you've got this breakaway of these, you know, these riders. De Vries is a rider from Belgium, the 27-year-old, okay, riding for Astana. Top Sport, they get man Van Leeberg, Rompot, Van Gotham, Backert of Wanty. The only person that's, you know, it's in there that maybe doesn't really fit is the Lamprey rider, Matteo Bono, but he's probably experienced enough that you thought maybe he can get out there. He's probably been given the orders that getting this breakaway so that Modelo can sit back, he can be looked after by his team, and they don't have to put a rider towards the front, because the riders that are riding at the front are Orica Bike Exchange, possibly for Caleb Ewan, who has, you know, won the last stage of the Tour of Britain. Cofidis, you know, obviously they are thinking of their man Bouhanni, the boxer, and LottoNL-Jumbo with Groenewegen, Lotto Soudal with Grijpo, who led out last year but failed, only finished 4th, and Ethics with Kittel. So, but there's other sprinters in here that aren't putting riders up towards the fronts, and it's going to be, you know, really interesting to see this this final, because it's a bit last year, you know, looking at this final was a bit of a, oh, it was a bit kind of crazy towards the end. It's not a very interesting circuit, you know, it's flat racing, but I'm sure everybody will want to have a good go at it. And let's not forget, you know, Gardini for Astana, and De Vries is here, so Astana don't have to come to the front and, you know, and burn some matches. They can just sit back with De Vries in the breakaway just at the back here.
Be interesting to see what Edix Quickstep do in terms of dividing their resources. They have Tom Bonin, who's shown increasing appetite for the bunch sprints of late, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a topic we'll revisit during this show
a
little bit later on.
No, we're in Holland, but we're you know, close to Belgium, so it's very important. So Tom Bonin, as you said, has started to show well in sprints, but I think it will be for Kittel today. And the fact that they put a rider towards the front, I would think Kittel would have to sprint. It's what he's got paid to do, and he'll have to sprint today.
Well, watch for that. See exactly how Edix Quickstep managed their almost embarrassment of riches. Their resources are plentiful and abundant, and inevitably they end up doing quite a bit of the legwork in chasing down the breakaway group, which is currently controlling a 2 minutes and 47-second advantage. It's all very benign at the moment. Crowds coming out to view. Always massive interest in bike racing in the Netherlands. They really love their racing, and great to see as the back of the peloton tour along and try and enjoy the view and the experience as much as they possibly can. So it's just under 58 kilometers to go in the stage. 5 riders out front. We're going to get another break out of the way. Back to you very shortly after these. The bunch touring along towards the back is Peter Sagan, the world champion. Seems relaxed about things at the moment. There he is. He's showing off his bunny hopping skills. And they get a Pretty healthy workout in this kind of racing, don't they? Plenty of road furniture in the Netherlands and in Belgium, where they're going to be spending the week. And Peter Sagan whizzing along, 2 minutes and 42 seconds now behind the group of 5 up front, who have started to put their hammer down, as well they might, because we're inching ever closer to this finishing town of Bolsward in the Netherlands. We're in the Friesland region of the Netherlands, and still time for a little bit of chat as Tom Boasson finds himself alongside the reigning world champion. Well, Boasson knows what it's like to wear rainbow stripes. He'd quite fancy that again, and I wonder if the fact that it is going to be a flat parkour for the World Championships this year has played into the fact that Boasson has shown increasing appetite, as I said before the break, for these bunch sprints. Victory in the Ride London Classic of late, Brussels Cycles Classic, stage win in the Tour de Wallonie. It's a little bit of an Indian summer for him.
Yes, I think that's why the World Championships, he wants to prove that possibly, if he goes to Qatar as part of the Belgian team, that you know, he gets looked after, and you know, maybe training towards that. Although he was training towards the classics, but now towards, you know, the back end of the season, you know, from for the World Championship. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see the team selections and how they set out. You know, obviously he won way back in Spain some time ago now, and he would dearly love to try and win again. And you know, you never write him off. When you look at the Paris-Roubaix this year, and Ethics went completely with Tom Boasson and rode for him all day, and he came up just a little bit short, but he's decided to keep with this team. He believes in this team. He's the heart of this team, and he wants to go for another victory in Paris-Roubaix next year. But let's not forget the World Championships are coming up. But I think if it does come down to a sprint, I'm not too sure he has the speed now to beat the fast men.
Might be a bridge too far, but certainly a massive option for Belgium. Should it come to that, the peloton is divided, albeit briefly. And they are conjoined once more. Orica Bike Exchange with big responsibility. And they'll be looking after, one would expect, Michael Matthews, a man who might, well, he's ambitions for the overall, and he'll have to go hunting. Might he be the sort of rider that'd be interested in the Golden Kilometre? Or will he look solely to take the sprint wins when they're offered to him?
Well, we were talking about that during the break there. There are people thinking of the overall, with it being kind of geared around more of the sprinters. You would think this man here, Tom Boasson, because you know, he can get round the course around Geurersbergen. He can time trial well enough. He's got good enough team time trial squads. Maybe he'll allow Kittel to go out, and you know, the fact that he's getting bottles now would mean that Kittel would be their man for the stage win, and Boasson could possibly be the man that could go up and take some of these bonus seconds. And the same with Michael Matthews, Boasson Hagen. Because let's be honest here, if you don't think you can get in the top 3 today, then there's no real point in going for these bonuses unless you're thinking of the overall. So if you've got a sprint, and if you're not really fast enough to beat the likes of Graipo or Kittel, they sort of riders, then I think this Golden Kilometre is going to be a little bit more interesting this year than it was last year.
Well, Tom Boason's on bottle duty, and that probably gives you your answer. The suggestion is that Marcel Kittel is in good form, and he's recovered from that bout of illness. It was a bit of a surprise and a shock and a worry, I suppose, on some level, that he did appear to be so ill during the Championship of Flanders last Thursday. But has made a recovery, obviously feels that he's in top form now, and the Ethics Quick-Step squad will look after him. The 5 riders up front have a little bit of company on the bike lane to the left, but they tour on their merry way. If you think this is easy, just look at the cyclo-tourists to the left and how hard he has to try for just a few hundred meters to try and stay with them before bowing to the inevitable. These guys are riding tempo. It is a tempo that you couldn't even imagine matching, because they are the very best in the world, and they are the 5 out front for the last pretty much since the start of the race. Didn't take long for them to get up the road. Rompot on the front. Brian van Gottem is the 25-year-old with the Dutch Rompot squad. Second year on the team, and this is his first pro-continental contract, first proper contract at pro level. Moment of fame. The camera decides to avoid the peloton, the charging peloton, for a while and pick up that rider out training. Great to see such a fantastic cycling network. We've spoken about it for I don't know how many years, but the Dutch really lead the world, don't they, in presenting cycling infrastructure, and with that as sort of cycle lanes, well, cycling is a pleasure. You do have to dodge the traffic a bit out there. No such concerns for the riders in the Eneco Tour. Cofidis, Lotto Soudal, LottoNL-Jumbo, the latter name being the Dutch registered team, of course. Lotto Soudal is the Belgian registered squad, representing the lotteries from their respective nations. And Edix Quickstep waiting to pick it up. Orica, Bike Edge, Bike Exchange. They're the squads, of course, that, well, they've got the big interest in what happens at the back end of this stage. The Française de Jeux squad lurking a little bit just behind those leading squads at the head of the arrowhead. Française de Jeux, of course, have Arnaud Demar, who had a great start to the season and then tailed off a little bit. He won Milan-San Remo in controversial circumstances, but nonetheless very much his first Monument Classic victory. And Arnaud Demar had some great results at the start of the year, and could probably do with another good result. Might be a good time to start finding a bit of form, especially with the World Championships coming up. This is Bert van Lerberg from Belgium, the youngest member of this quintet of breakaway riders, but possibly the biggest. He's a big, strong lump of a lad, as they might say around here in Dutch.
He's been doing well in the sprints. He's one of the kind of new Belgian sprinters, and this team always produces very good riders. It's a team just purely of riders from the Flanders area, and they've produced some really good riders in the past that have kind of stepped up. They've just kind of pigeonholed their team right into the second division. It's a kind of development team, and a very good development team, because a lot of the riders from this team go on to many other teams. One is also in the breakaway, De Vries, and De Vries was an excellent rider, but at the end of the day, he wasn't, when you go up to World Tour level, you don't always produce the same results as you would do in a team like Topsport Vlaanderen, because Topsport Vlaanderen are an opportunist team. A World Tour team, it's all geared up towards points, and that's where I kind of like the opportunist type teams, because they get involved with the racing, and here it's all about protecting a top 10 position, and of course trying to win stage wins. And De Vries is getting obviously tactics. He's riding totally differently, and it doesn't suit everybody to ride within parameters, instead of just go out there and enjoy yourself and race. So yeah, De Vries maybe hasn't had the same amount of success that he did have with Topsport Vlaanderen, but he's a big asset to that team.
Inside the final 50 kilometers of stage one of the Eneco Tour for 2016, 12th edition of this race, increasingly important, I think, in the World Tour. It's certainly important this year. It's a World Championship tune-up, and we're heading towards what we anticipate is going to be a sprint finish into Bolsward. They started here at the beginning of 185 kilometers of tough bike racing today, and they're now down inside the final 50 kilometers with the leading riders out front, as indeed they have been since the early stages, pretty much rock solid at 2.5 to 3 minutes. That's the way the gap has been maintained and managed, coming just a little bit south of 2.5 minutes for the first time lately, with Matteo Bono of Team Lampre, 32-year-old Italian rider, the oldest rider in this group. He's been Lampre since he was a stagiaire back in 2005. He's a one-team man, and he's heading off to the newly reconstituted Lampre squad next year with the Chinese Sport of the of Chinese investment. Meanwhile, Lotto Soudal controlling the front. They've got the reigning champion Tim Wellens in their number, but perhaps more significantly in terms of stage honours today, they have Andre Greipel. Marco Colidan from Trek-Segafredo has to make an unscheduled pit stop, or is it scheduled? He's not the only one that's had to stop. And the Française de Jour riders also makes a brief stop at the side of the road, and got a quick sight of Andre Greipel in his German national champions jersey, just loitering and lingering at the back of the group. Meanwhile, Alafaci from Trek-Segafredo goes back to get his instructions from the Trek-Segafredo T car. Dirk de Mol steering that machine. And Greipel just sitting at the back of the bunch, clearly unconcerned at the moment, satisfied with the pace setting that's being presented by his own team, just trying to save as much energy as possible.
Well, it's nice and relaxed. There's no wind blowing at this moment. You can just see with the the trees at the side of the road, so it's nice and relaxed. You can sit down the back. 5 teams riding on the front, and let's give them a bit of a name check now. Of the 5 riders in the front, you've got Lotto Soudal with Frison, you've got LottoNL-Jumbo in the yellow, Russen, and then you've got also involved there Ethics of Kaiser, Kaiser there, Cofidis, Hofstetter, and Orica Bike Exchange have got Carlos Verona. So 5 riders that have been on the front pretty much all day, 5 against 5, and that's why the gap is just still hovering about 2.5 minutes mark.
LottoNL-Jumbo on the front as well. Dylan Groenewegen is surely their go-to man. They have riders that can do something a little bit later in the week. What about Primoz Roglic? Surprised everyone with some of his time trial performances in the Giro d'Italia. Flat time trial, short flat time trial, perhaps not really playing to his talents, but well, they have riders that will have belief that they can do something during the week. Groenewegen certainly would be looking to do a job on home soil this afternoon. Smagulis just picking up the Latvian champion, just picking up the bottles from the Astana team car.
Probably thinks with that jersey on he doesn't need numbers.
Oh, he must be exempt. Yes, indeed. Wrapping the knuckles. Some Swiss francs heading to UCI headquarters after that, perhaps. Well, these things can happen. There's Peter Nordhaug for Team Sky. They have, well, Danny Van Poppel, as Brian has mentioned earlier, second on this equivalent stage 12 months ago, which will have buoyed, if that's the right term. He's got a brother called Boy, isn't he? But will have excited Team Sky ahead of his appearance with them this year. And Swift's in there as well. And Geraint Thomas will be, I think, looking forward to the time trial and an opportunity to present himself on general classification. Geraint Thomas still, well, very much with big ambitions in the short stage races. So inside 50k to go now. 5 riders still up front, 2.5 minutes to the good. Another break, back after these. Andre Greipel's at the back of the peloton. He doesn't seem too concerned yet. It's just under 2.5 minutes advantage. The peloton are tipping along at a fair old rate now. So too are the 5 breakaway riders up front. Greipel is still trying to save as much energy as he possibly can. Inside 45 kilometers to go on the first stage of the Eneco Tour, heading to Bolsward, where the stage began. 185 kilometers to go. And now Andre Greipel is picking up a few bottles and taking it as easily as he possibly can. His German national champions colours indicating that's been a pretty strong season for him. Final stage victory, of course, in the Tour de France, saving his Tour de France, and really that was the one to get. He was absolutely made up, wasn't he? The sheer burst of joy, excitement, relief, well, all the emotions went into that celebration from Andre Greipel. He's 34 years of age now. Total of 11 stage victories in the Tour de France, 6 in the Giro, 4 in the Vuelta, countless other race wins, and stage win in Tour of Britain as well, into Castle Douglas just a couple of weeks ago. And that suggesting that he wintered well and kept his form through the year. Andre Greipel. It really is. He's had an exemplary career, really, in terms of a couple of years ago it looked like he might just be losing his edge a little bit, but he made a hell of a comeback, didn't he?
Yeah, last year at the Tour de France was absolutely amazing for him. And you know, I asked the question at the team presentation in Glasgow before the Tour of Britain, and you know, surely it takes, you know, a strong mentality to keep on going all the way to Paris, knowing that, you know, you've been beaten, you know, pretty much 20 other stages beforehand. Okay, not all of them are sprint finishes, but he was getting beat. But he stayed there until the end, and you know, still believed. And you know, it's a great testament to his focus, because not many people would do that. You know, there'd be plenty of toys thrown out the pram, but he's an old enough and big enough lad now that he just kept on focusing, and you know, in 2 years of Tour de France, he's won the Champs-Élysées. So, as you say, it's you know, the world championship of, you know, sprinters, and he came out with only one stage win. So it's you know, I just don't understand why he's I think he's maybe stopped for a natural break there. He's coming through the cars, the chat, taking some bottles. But because if this pace was on, he's the man that they're going to be helping. He's the man that's going to be sprinting. So I don't think you would want him to waste any energy getting bottles. But I think it's just relaxed now. Looking at the time gap, it's not coming down. You know, they're holding it not too far, just in case they wanted to possibly bring it back for this golden kilometre. So it does look more likely that in the next, what, 22, 23 kilometres, they're not going to bring these 5 riders back. So I think they're going to battle it out for this golden kilometre, because it does look as if the 5 teams at the front are just really interested in you know, the stage victory rather than anything else.
This is a Primus sprint coming up. There's an intermediate sprints competition as well. The first of those taken by Val Lerberga earlier on in the stage. Sketchy little left-hander there. It'll be interesting for the... Oh, and De Vries has to be alive as the 5 riders put themselves back together again. But yeah, let's watch for how this is contested. Well, this is the Primus points. And clearly, Van Goghem wants this one. De Vries goes again.
Sprinting into a roundabout.
At 60 kilometers an hour. Don't try that at home. Oh, Bono ends up missing out on the bunny hop. And as a result, finds himself a little bit of work to do. They'll put it back together again after this, presumably. It's 3. And great to see it's really contested, isn't it? It's a scrap. So often you'll see the intermediate sprints are not really contested. They just roll through, trying to maintain and manage their advantage. And Van Goghem finds himself on the front, leading out from 2 far. It's Bert van Lerberga who took the first one. Looks as if he's comfortably going to get the second one. De Vries gives it up, and he'll try and save a little bit of energy for a little bit later and further down the road. And that was, well, a piece of entertainment. The intermediate sprints aren't always as entertaining as that, are they?
Well, that's a jersey. It's the black Primus jersey. And, you know, this young man, the youngest man in the breakaway, Bert van Lerberga from Top Sport Vlaanderen, has now got that jersey. But, yeah, a bit dicey, 500 metres to go, and you have that roundabout. Bono with any experienced rider. But in the end, the Belgian, in a race that's very important, we already mentioned this earlier on today, that it's very important for these teams to get on the podium, and you know, he'll be on the podium after winning 2 sprints today.
So just over 40 kilometers to go for the riders, with Cofidis, Lotto Soudal and LottoNL-Jumbo looking after it. It's less than 25 miles in old money. 40 kilometers to put it together correctly, as the bunch make their way through this sketchy little left-hander, but it's still a large bunch, very much an untroubled bunch, chasing down the group of 5 riders up front. They've been clear since pretty much the beginning of the stage, and those 5 riders at that 2.5 minute advantage, with Mark McNally on the back of the bunch. The Brit with Wanty Group Gobert is a long way from the front, isn't he? And through this roundabout just a little while ago, the group up front all went to the left of it, and a bit of a sketchy moment for Matteo Bono as the 5 riders contested that Primus sprint at Vidmarsum. Stage 1 of the Eneco Tours, the 12th edition of this classic race, began as the Tour of Netherlands back in 1948, now defunct. And in around about 2000, Eneco took over sponsorship, Eneco Energy took over sponsorship, and it became the Eneco Tour. And then that fell into disrepair, and it reconstituted itself as a World Tour event. World Cup, then World Tour event in 2005. And since then, when Bobby Julich took it, and since then, it has become a real staple on the World Tour calendar. Penultimate event of the 2016 World Tour. The World Championships to come in a couple of weeks' time. Tour of Lombardy, of course, is the final event a little bit later on in October. So 38 kilometers to go, 2 minutes 23 to the 5 up front. It's starting to get moving here on stage 1 of Eneco. They're not hanging around now because the 5 riders up front, their advantage is shrinking. Not shrinking so much that we think they're going to get caught before the golden kilometer, which comes with 20 kilometers to go. But still, the bunch behind are starting to get their skates on and starting to close down this advantage. Never more than 3.5 minutes for these 5 riders up front. But the first stage of the Eneco Tour is in the finale as the teams are starting to get organized. And the next lap round, this is going to be part of this golden kilometer. We talk about 3 separate sprints inside 1 kilometer. This is a completely separate sprint competition. The Primus checkpoint, the second sprint, Bert van Lerberge taking 13 points ahead of Van Gotem. And there's all sorts of calculations to be made on that, depending on how much time, how much of an advantage they have on the main bunch behind. If you've got 1 minute, you get a little factor, an extra points advantage, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, etc. Well, they'd over 2 minutes advantage. They calculate that, added it in, and the situation is that it's Van Lerberge that is heading to be wearing that black jersey into tomorrow's second stage, and that'll be a proud honor for him. And good to get a little look at this ahead of what's coming. 2 minutes 15, still staying very stable for these 5 riders. We'll name them again. It's De Vries up front for the Astana squad. Let's pick them up as they head towards the finish line. First of 3 passages. 2 full laps coming up for the riders of just over 17 kilometers. It's a long straight run. It's a long flat run, and you might think that's safe, but sometimes the more time and opportunity they have to look at it, the more likely they are that more people feel they can get involved, and it can get even sketchier. It's the man from Top Sport Vlaanderen, Van Lerberge, 23-year-old, the youngest rider from Belgium, that leads the field and leads the riders from the breakaway group across the line with 2 full laps to complete. Brian, that's the first side for the riders of this finish line, those that haven't raced it before, and it is a relatively comfortable run.
Yeah, they get to see it a few times in a day. Many riders will know it from last year as well, same circuit when Viviani won, but you can just see the run in. It's very straight. Quite a large road, and I can remember last year it was kind of chopping and changing, and it got very dicey in the end. Greipo led out, but unfortunately 3 riders came over the top of him, and he finished 4th. So I think he's on a bit better form now. But everybody will be gearing up for this final. If we can look at the sprinters already, we've seen Kajsa working at front for Ethics, thinking of Kittel. Then we've got Verona just sitting second for Orica Bike Exchange, thinking of Caleb Ewan. Cofidis have been putting a man at the front to Hofstetter for Bouhanni. LottoNL-Jumbo have got Rusin towards the front, thinking of Groenewegen. And LottoNL-Jumbo have got Frison helping the German champion, just coming up towards the front now.
So Marcel Kittel is fine, or I should say Andre Greipel has finally made his way up through the bunch. They're spread wide across the road. Hammer's not on, down in a massive way, but still that gap is starting to come down. So without putting the pressure on in a huge way, well, it still has managed to whittle things down a little bit. Athletics Quick Step on the front as they head across the line, just over 2 minutes, 2 minutes and 7 seconds. The advantage for the riders up front with John Degenkolb. The trio of German sprinters among the favourites. Andre Greipel and Marcel Kittel we've mentioned, but John Degenkolb too. 10 Vuelta stages in his career. At Paris-Roubaix and Milan-San Remo double in 2015. His greatest achievement. He's number 23 there, just in front of Smagulis, the Latvian champion, with the dispensation on pinning numbers on.
We're talking about some of the sprinters there, and Giant Alpecin not putting anybody up towards the chase, so kind of sitting back. They have got John Degenkolb. Another team not putting anybody in the chase is Trek-Segafredo. They've got Giacomo Nizzolo, the Italian champion, who stopped in the Tour of Britain with a hairline, I think it was a fracture in his elbow, but he's come back to winning ways recently. Katusha with Alexander Kristoff. So there's teams in here not putting riders. Team Sky with Danny Van Poppel, he was second here yesterday. Cannondale with Walter Whippet. Even I am with Van Genechten. Astana have got a rider in the breakaway, and so have Lamprey, so you know they don't have to put riders. But there are even Française de Jeu with Arnaud Demar. So there are a few riders not putting riders into the chase of this group of 5 in front.
Alexander Kristoff was in stunning form, wasn't he, in Norway last week in his home event, the Tour des Fjords, a couple of weeks ago now. But it took 3 stage wins now, albeit it wasn't anything like as difficult or as packed a field in terms of the talent that they were dealing with. But for all that, Kristoff looked like he was coming back to some decent form and getting it at a good time.
That's what I'm saying. Why wouldn't you put, you know, one rider if you think you can win? Because the last thing you want to hear is it's all about you know, remaining friends in the peloton. And if 5 teams are putting one rider up, why hasn't Katusha put a rider up? Maybe Kristoff is not feeling confident, but if he wins today, then you know people will be pointing fingers. Why didn't you help out? So it's all about keeping the ambience in the peloton.
Yes, it's a village, isn't it? It's a travelling town, and there's all sorts of politics that goes on in there, and you've got to be seen to be doing the work that's required. Sometimes it seems an arcane and difficult to understand set of unwritten rules. The etiquette of the sport can be confusing, and of course so many teams and riders will try and take whatever chances they can. Well, these riders are taking whatever chances they can. It's down to 2 minutes now. Their lead, it's coming down. But surely they will at this point be contesting those intermediate sprint points at the Golden Kilometre. Just over 20 kilometres to go. We'll be back for that. We're just going to get one more commercial break out of the way. Come back to us after these. They're pretty much stomping on the pedals at this moment to try and stay clear, because the gap is coming down well inside the finale now. Inside 28 kilometres to go on stage 1 of the Eneco Tour, as the peloton hunt down the 5 breakaway riders who are frantically trying to hang on to that advantage. Smagulis, the Latvian champion, well, he's showing off the jersey, getting plenty of airtime. He spent quite a bit of time at the back of the bunch. He's comfortable, he's content, he's calm, and he's very cool about things, but less so for the 5 riders up front, which include his teammate Laurens de Vries, the Astana rider, with the Belgian rider riding with Astana, 27 years of age now, contracted through to the end of 2018. So Astana clearly satisfied with the solid work that Laurens de Vries does. As Brian has said, hasn't been able to fight for his own victories of late since he moved over to Astana. in Top Sport Vlaanderen, well, it tends to be a team that gives their riders plenty of opportunity, and indeed it's hard to pick out one of their top sprinter, the rider that's likely to be to the fore in the final sprint. Amari Capio perhaps, or Peter van Spraybrook might be and problems as the bunch. A little bit of an issue. One of the Lamprey riders is on the deck, Trek-Segafredo, also a little bit of lack of delight with that situation, but well, no harm done really, and Stein de Volder will get back into the fold without too much difficulty. And for Lamprey, that's Chimolai. Is that Thomas? I'm not sure. Just a flash of one of the Sky riders. I believe it was
Nizzolo and Geraint Thomas.
And there's a couple of sprinters that might have been expected to do a job. Yeah, Giacomo Nizzolo, I think he's just taking an opportunity to
natural break,
making the most of a situation that wasn't of his making. So clearly confident he can get back in there. He's their sprinter. 26.2 kilometers to go. It just shows how
just
well they understand it.
Just road space. It was just two coming together there. It just came. I think it was a Lamprey rider, two groups coming together as the road narrowed. So unfortunately, touch of wheels, and some of the riders come down.
Yeah, one of the Astana riders, I think, hitting the deck first. But all riders pretty quickly back on their feet and back into the action. Meanwhile, on the front of the peloton, but, steady but horrifically painful tempo is being set. It's not horrifically painful, but it's just difficult to endure it for any length of time. Certainly you'd want to be World Tour level to handle the kind of watts that are going in at the moment. The rest of the teams sitting in the slipstream, taking advantage of the effort that has been put in there by Edix Quickstep, Orica Bike Exchange, the Cofidis squad, LottoNL-Jumbo, plenty of teams willing to get involved. And there you have Lars Petter Nordhaug just trying to catch a ride at the back of the peloton as these groups try and put themselves back together again.
Just noticed there's a lot of bottles being thrown off at that particular time, so a nice place to stand and gather some items. There must have been about a dozen bottles thrown off just at once. And we were going through some sprinters. We cannot discount the world champion Peter Sagan, as we see another compression in the peloton. Everybody kind of panics and goes onto the grass. The new European champion from yesterday is just looked relaxed, and another person you can't discount in a stage like this.
Yeah, there's an assumption, you know, there's a sense that people think, well, he's not quite the absolute A-list or A++ of sprinters. He's one of the best sprinters in the world, but not quite a Marcel Kittel kind of level. But given, you know, on his day, anything can go right. He seems to be in absolutely flying form. He jogged up that finishing straight yesterday, and he looked like he was ready for another couple of 100 kilometers.
Well, he's either going to do one thing or another, and he's so unpredictable. And you know, I love the way he races. He's either going to sprint today, he's going to ride round in the peloton, he's not going to ask for any help and see how he is, or he might decide to try and help Eric Baska, you know, the young person who can sprint well. He won the I think it was a Hans Army Classic this year from a sprint finish, so and he beat Dylan Groenewegen in that as well. So he might decide to help. Depends how he feels, because it was a bit of a trip, you know, a long race yesterday, a bit of a trip over from the European Champions. It wasn't an easy race. I think he would be feeling it slightly in his legs. Very happy that the speeds is not hard, there's no crosswinds, and it's a fairly sedate pace. When I say fairly sedate, they're still probably averaging, you know, well over 40 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, and the rest, but I suppose sitting in the slipstream with the average watts that these riders can put in, well within their compass and well within their capability. Paddy Bevan towards the back there for the Cannondale squad. The New Zealand rider. And still Orica Bike Exchange. Clearly they believe that Michael Matthews is on good form. They they've set their stall out. They've put the whole team on the front. They've been there for a long time as well, pretty much with the whole squad thereabouts. They have maximum focus, maximum concentration here. There's no end of season blues about the way that they're presenting themselves into this first stage.
They are going for it, but I'm not too sure it's for Matthews. I think it's for Caleb Ewan more than Matthews. You've got to remember that Matthews is moving on to another team. Caleb is, we're all in for, they've already told me they're all in for Caleb Ewan. I don't know if it's been announced the 3 riders that they've taken on, but they're taking on a rider to help Caleb Ewan in the sprints, and thinking smartly, because they've already got Meeskits, so I'm not too sure what's been announced or anything, but they are taking on one rider to help Caleb Ewan in the bunch sprints.
Well, of course, Caleb Ewan started the season in such fine form. Simply stunning sprint performances, and that unique, distinctive sprinting style. Will he be presented into a situation to take victory on the first stage of the Eneco Tour? We're going to find out in the next 22.5 kilometers. Another couple of kilometers, and the riders up front will be contesting those golden kilometer of intermediate sprints. 3 intermediate sprints inside a kilometer. Back to Wittmarsum. So a minute and a half up front for the riders in the breakaway group. The 5 riders up front from the main bunch behind. Cofidis still looking after things. So just only 2 kilometers remaining on stage 1 of Eneco 2016. And a few riders are going to be feeling the pinch a little bit now towards the back of the bunch. Still a very large and compact group that are set to contest this. But first of all, they've got to chase down those 5 riders who've been out front since the early moments of this first stage of the Eneco Tour. Started in Bolsward and will finish back in that picturesque town in the Friesland region of the Netherlands, with, well, these 5 riders desperately trying to hang on out front. It's dark clouds overhead, but it's been pretty benign conditions, as good as you're going to get in this part of Europe for the riders to contest this. And Brian van Gotham is clearly a man on a mission at the moment. De Vries letting a little gap go, and I think perhaps that's a little bit of frustration, because Frederik Backaert at the back of the group doesn't look as if he's got a whole lot of strength left, or maybe he's kidding and fancies these few sprints coming up in a few moments.
There's only bonus seconds, and that's it. 3, 2 and 1 of all of these sprints. We were just mentioning Caleb Ewan for Orica Bike Exchange, but it's already been announced. You see 1,000 metres to go to the first of the sprints, so a hard effort for these riders. And it does look as if Backaert is trying to look at these, and it's very entertaining. But Roger Kluge has been announced for support for Caleb Ewan in the future.
Well, Brian van Gotham found himself leading out the last Prima sprint, different sprint competition, and losing out on that case on that occasion to Bert van der Berge, who's sitting second last of these riders. And here it comes. Frederik Backaert took a little bit of a break, and when he's jumped them, he's ambushed them. No one wants to chase them down, and that's going to make him popular. But Van Gotham a little bit frustrated, but no one else wants to look after this one. Bono's going to try and chase him down. And will those 2 riders be allowed to clip off the front, as now De Vries responds? Well, if they wait 2 or 3 seconds before they respond to each of those, then it's going to be difficult to get back on terms. But it looks as if the first of these at least is going to go the way of Frederik Backaert, the Wanty Group Gobert rider, as he heads towards the kite. 26-year-old Belgium, and De Vries is going to get on terms with Bono. The first of those points, I think, is going to be taken by Backaert. And clearly across the line ahead of Matteo Bono and De Vries, but they'll keep riding because there's 3 in quick succession.
It looks like a pursuit here, so Backaert, Bono, De Vries, and just coming up as the next sprints. And I think everybody was waiting on Bert van Lieberg by Top Sport Vlaanderen, but he's brought it back with a big effort. But another big effort from Backgaard, and he takes another 3 seconds bonus. So he's got 6 seconds, but
he's done
Lieberg comes up and takes second. De Vries is still in there, so yeah, it's entertaining. But Backgaard sits up. That was a hard, almost a kilometre. There's still one sprint to come.
I think he was begging to be caught. Van Gogham's going to go for this one. Van der Berge, I think, took second, didn't he, across the line in that one, and De Vries gets another bonus second for his effort. Van Gogham's going to have his heart broken again, I think, by De Vries. He's not going to win any of these sprints, but De Vries is showing his ability to go and go again over a full kilometre. Indeed, it's a bit more than that, because the attack came from, well, a kilometre to go before they got to the first of those. So Backgaard makes the big effort. De Vries scores in all three.
Yeah, it's a big effort when you consider, you know, they're all within a kilometre, and he gets 5 seconds for his effort. By making about the same effort, the rider that first went on the attack, Fredrik Backgaard, takes 6 seconds. So I think he's the benefactor of the golden kilometre from the 5 in front.
Bono wants to keep going, because that's that little bit of work done, but their advantage now just 1 minute and 11 seconds. So confirmation, De Vries from Van Goghem and Matteo Bono for the third of those. As the bunch not too far behind now make their way across the first of those lines, but to no advantage, to no avail. There's no bonus seconds to be mopped up from the main contenders. So the big winner, Fredrik Backgaard, 6 seconds gained, and that will be the same amount of seconds gained at the finish line by the rider who finishes second in the stage. So Backgaard, I think at this point, probably assured of, assuming he hangs on in the bunch, and assuming they are actually caught by the bunch. A lot of assumptions going on in there, but if Backgaard does end up finishing this in the main bunch and it doesn't get up in the sprint, I think he'll be sitting third overall at the end of the day. That's the way it's likely to look. Backgaard, the big winner. De Vries gains 5 seconds, and the others bit part players. The 5 are back together again. The Shimano neutral service car moves ahead of them in anticipation of these riders being caught. It's still over a minute, but it's coming down now.
Yeah, there's 2 service cars, and that's the car that normally sits in front of the peloton. So when the gap comes down, they come forward. They still have a car behind them, so not to worry about that. And normally in a race at this level, you get a neutral service car sits behind the breakaway, as we see, and another car which has gone past sits about 30 seconds in front of the peloton. Because that gap is coming down, they're just moving everything out the way and making sure that you know, there's nothing that's going to affect the chase of these 5 riders.
Yeah, things can happen quickly, especially on a circuit with lots of twists and turns. This isn't the most technical finish that you could possibly have in the Netherlands. They've found a pretty safe one. Still, for all that, there are plenty of turns and 1 or 2 roundabouts in there. They get the bell. 1 lap remaining on stage 1 of the Eneco Tour. The 5 riders will get the bell. Van Goghem it is, the man from the Netherlands, the home rider, the only home rider in this breakaway group, has the honour of leading the Stage 1 Eneco Tour into its final tour at the finishing circuit. Van Goghem wants to see a little bit more activity from these riders. Now we see the teams starting to put themselves together, starting to get their lead-out trains organised. Team Katusha on the left-hand side, the big white K on the red jerseys. That's Alexander Kristoff's squad. In the centre of picture, it's Edix Quickstep. Marcel Kittel is the man that they're looking after. Team Movistar on the left-hand side, the green stripe down the centre of the helmets. Perhaps a little less concerned with the sprint and more concerned with keeping. They've got 1 or 2 time trial contenders. They want to keep them out of harm's way, out of trouble. Lotto Soudal, the red jerseys towards the right of picture, so it's the left of the Katushas, while they're looking after the man in the German national champions jersey. That is Andre Greipel. So just over 10 miles of racing left. The bunch flashing through, but still a little bit of work to do. They've got to close down a minute advantage, so there can be no let up now between now and the end of this stage. Big group together. All the main sprint contenders still involved. It's a flat road. The conditions relatively benign. It's made for sprinting.
It is, and it looks as if it's going to be a sprint, this gap coming down all the time. A few of the teams bring in their, not just their sprinters, but their GC contenders up towards the front, because we did have a couple of pinch points on this circuit. They already know it, and especially going through this town, they don't want any incidents as the road narrows, and so that's why they're trying to look after not just the sprinters in their team, but also the GC contenders, thinking in the bigger picture.
Problems at the back of the field, and riders down in numbers. Sky have lost a couple of riders in this one, and there's a little bit of pain and suffering as well, riders from Team Cofidis as well. That's difficulty for Bouhanni. It's not Bouhanni involved, of course, but well, frustration, and that's just an indication of how these things get difficult. Anthony Tourgy, I think, from the Colidan perhaps in there as well for Trek. And just you mentioned a pinch point. You mentioned the pinch point.
Yeah, Nordau just falls over on the left-hand side, but I think this is Van Poppel here.
You know, could it be the local man? Big favourite for Sky. They'd have been trying to set him up. Danny Van Poppel. We'll wait for full confirmation, but Danny Van Poppel, has he come to grief and hit the deck on home soil? Well, not what he was hoping for, not what Team Sky were hoping for. Still the peloton wend their way onwards, and it is, yeah, Danny Van Poppel. Was he still holding his arm? He was holding his arm, and he kind of worried a little bit about his collarbone, but a little less. He seems to be able to put a little bit of weight on it now, so fingers crossed there are no broken bones there for Danny Van Poppel. But his hopes of stage victory into Bolsward this afternoon they've gone up in smoke there. Inside a minute now, advantage for the riders up front. Still a bit of work to do to close this one down.
Yeah, it's still Carlos Verona for Orica Bike Exchange. Freeze on just behind for Lotto Soudal in the red, but you can just see a little bit more urgency now inside the last 15 kilometres, and you know, with that crash, the nerves are up. Pollitt comes up for Katusha, the big tall German rider in the centre in the red. But with these couple of pinch points, it's important if you don't want to get involved in a crash. Unfortunately, second in the stage last year, Danny Van Poppel, the sprinter. Now that Viviani never started, he would be the designated sprinter for Team Sky, and already lost him due to that crash now. So unfortunately for Team Sky, they'll just have to live and fight another day.
We're into the final 14 kilometres of stage one of the Eneco Tour for 2016. The 5 riders up front, they're almost in the same helicopter shot because the bunch have closed this one down now inside a minute, but they've still got quite a bit of work to do. But they're charging along now. Frison on the front for Lotto Soudal, and Andre Greipel, his team leader, sitting, what, 6th in line. There's just one Orica Bike Exchange interloper in there, and Greipel is being perfectly presented. Team Katusha lining up also in red jerseys behind. They've got Alexander Kristoff in good form recently. Now moving up on the left-hand side of the road, or the right-hand side of picture. Giant are looking to project John Degenkolb into perfect position. Behind them immediately, Française de Jeu have Arnaud Demar with belief that he can take a stage win in the Netherlands. Plenty of riders are just being well, not quite tailed off, but in a big line out at the back of the bunch, and their hopes of being involved, well, pretty much come to naught at this moment. Just over half a minute for the 5 riders up front. De Vries feels the pinch.
Yeah, this gap coming down very quickly now, and it's purely because they've heard the crash, they know about the crash, they want to keep their sprinter or GC contender out the way. You can just see the winner from the last 2 years, Wellens up there in 2nd place. Lars Bakkett's at the front for Lotto Soudal, and they just want to keep their sprinter Greipel well out of trouble, and the same with Tim Wellens. So the winner from the last couple of years is right up there towards the front, out of trouble.
Yeah, very controlled for Lotto Soudal at the moment, but still just over 12 kilometres to go. Now Matteo Bono, His shoulders rocking on the front of the breakaway group as he tries to try and hold on for as long as possible, but they're taking big chunks out of this. They really are charging. It took them a while to get going. This very often happens, Brian. The longer they leave the start of the final, the faster the final turns out to be.
Exactly, and you just saw the pictures before there. Greipel actually, when Lars Bak went to the front, he went on to his radio and said, too early, knock it back, and Friesen can back up. So there's no real panic. They know it from last year. There's no real panic here. The gap is coming down. It's still just under 30 seconds. They're at the front. They don't have to pile on the pressure. They just have to set a good enough tempo. So Greipel backed his team off, which is an experienced thing to do, because he knows this long straight finish, he's going to need the firepower.
Well, Friesen's a big unit and capable of generating the watts and doing it for a sustained period of time, and knocking back the tempo a little bit has allowed Française de Jeu to get involved. That's just ratcheted down a couple of kilometers an hour, meant that so many more teams are just going to pile onto the front, roll across the front, and now there could be, well, someone's got to take control of this pretty quick. Niels Pollitt is always so prominent at the front, looking after Alexander Kristoff. Kristoff's going to be nestling in there somewhere, but elbows are going to be flying as they try to maintain their position with just over 11 kilometers remaining. More road furniture bisects the peloton.
This is this pinch point again here. We had a previous crash.
Well, we'll see the peloton behind as they negotiate that little bit of road furniture. Managed to get through without too much difficulty. Katusha on the right-hand side of picture in the red, and the white with blue and red flashes of Française de Jeu, the familiar colours for so many years. Arnaud Demar is in there, and hopeful of another great victory in the Eneco Tour. And it's Backart that's calling for sustained effort. They want to all the riders to contribute for as long as possible. Inside half a minute, Nathan Haas towards the back for Dimension Data. Who are they going to go sprinting with today? Bit of a disappointment, really, that Mark Cavendish hasn't been able to come. Himself and Elia Viviani late withdrawals, so not able to renew their Olympic track rivalry on the roads here in the Netherlands today. Mark Cavendish keeping his powder dry, perhaps, with views. Look at all those bottles flying off. It's another great point to collect bottles. You're a bidon collector. That's a joyous part of the Netherlands. So Française de Jeu on the left-hand side as Trek-Segafredo looking to get organised on the right-hand side. Giacomo Nizzolo, has he managed to get back up and in? I presume he has. They also, of course, have Jasper Stuyven and Boy Van Poppel. Danny Van Poppel we saw on the deck, the team Skyrider. His brother is representing Trek-Segafredo here. Peter Weening has had to stop, clearly got a problem. The Dutch Grand Tour rider, the Dutch climber, can't get off that bike quick enough. Has he got a puncture? Bunch spread wide across the road. Inside 10 kilometers to go now on stage one of the Eneco Tour, and it's all up, I think, for this breakaway group. 24 seconds. They're still pushing hard, but these long straight roads in the Netherlands, well, they're not conducive to breakaway attempts, are they? And they are very much in sight and very much in mind of the bunch as they get themselves organised, get their lead-out trains organised. It's Trek on the left-hand side. They have Nizzolo still very much in contention, sitting third in line, as Katusha there as well, Française de Jeu there as well, and well, the breakaway group have done a good job, but it all seems very under control in the bunch behind.
It is, and you can see Katusha kind of mob in the front of the peloton. They're not in one line. What they're trying to do is take up road space, so they're kind of bunching out a little bit, taking up the road space because they're in a very good position, and they're kind of blocking the way behind, because there'll be a few nerves behind because they'll be getting shouted at, move up to the front, get in order. And Française de Jeu is on the right hand side in the white, in the middle of the peloton. Katusha just sitting nicely, fanning out a little bit to block anybody that's trying to sneak through.
Yeah, I suppose if they're sitting on the front, they're heading into the wind. So if they can just save a little bit of extra energy. They've kept themselves out of trouble, but they'll just try and set a tempo that is not going to burn all their matches and burn all their riders. So it's all about managing energy resources, managing resources throughout the team. 9 riders in these World Tour events, of course. 9 riders on the team. And it's Trek on the right-hand side, Katusha in the red. Tinkoff are in position. Where is Peter Sagan, the reigning world champion, coming on? The attacks are happening in the breakaway group, and Backart's done it again. He jumped them to take the first couple of sprints in the golden kilometre, and he's done it again, and no one wants to respond. But De Vries hasn't got the legs for it. Bono was first to react in the golden kilometre. Van Godem, I think, is the most frustrated, and the rider most likely to try and do it. The 25-year-old from the Netherlands wants to be the last man standing in his home tour. So it's going to be difficult for that to happen. That little flurry of activity's taken the lead for the lead rider. Bacart back up over a half a minute, but with less than 8 kilometers to go, it's surely a futile thing. It's Bono that covers this one again. Strong legs from the Italian rider. And the 5 become 2. Will they persevere behind? Lerberge surely won't accept that. Van Godem surely won't either. Bacart will have to ride. Bono's not going to come around too soon, having covered that gap. Meanwhile, behind, this is of little interest to these riders. They believe that they should have this one very much under control. Dimension Data trying to move up on the left-hand side of road there as it just widened. They'll try and squeeze back in. Who've they got? That'll be in sprint order. Edvald Boasson Hagen, of course, the Norwegian champion, is in their lineup, but will he be asked to go and get involved in the big bunch sprint?
Well, back out here for Wanty Group Gobert in the blue kit. Seems to be the strongest now in the breakaway, but he can't get rid of the other riders. He's already picked 6 seconds up in the golden kilometre. The 26-year-old Belgian, who won earlier on this year a stage of the Tour of Austria. But I'm not too sure with 35 seconds inside the last 7 kilometres that these 5 will manage to hold off a fast-moving peloton.
A fast-moving peloton that is about to hit a little sort of right-left piff-paff chicane at speed, and Van Godem on the front of the breakaway group has safely negotiated it. Would be interesting to see what's happening behind. De Vries, I think, is feeling the effects of the miles more than most.
I think they've called a truce now. They seem to be communicating a little bit together and trying to combine rather than attack each other. But they've not got the horsepower as they have in the right-hand side, but certainly they've got something left in their legs. But it's going to be a bit more of a concerted effort now from the peloton to bring these riders back.
Niels Pollitt on the front for Team Katusha, charging along in the service of Alexander Kristoff. Well, Katusha are not lining their entire team out on the front. So it's Trek-Segafredo and Frances de Jeux in behind Pollitt. And a bit of a dispute about the best route around that roundabout. To the left, I think, would have been the preferred option if you've got it. But riders going around on the right-hand side are going to lose a few positions. Now the peloton is strung out. From the block being on, now it's very much being stretched thin. Massive power put in by Niels Pollitt of Team Katusha.
Just behind him you've got Stuyven, and some riders starting to suffer a little bit towards the back, but this is a big effort now from Niels Pollitt. Frances de Jeux setting up nicely just behind, waiting and waiting. But still 32 seconds, 5.5 kilometres to go as Tyler Farah starts to bring up Team Dimension Data.
So who are Team Dimension Data going to sprint with today? They've got Edvald Boasson Hagen, as I've said. Probably wouldn't fancy himself in a big bunch sprint. Perhaps Van Rensburg or Nathan Haas perhaps might be their go-to men. Even Tyler Farrell trying to roll back the years with a little bit of sprinting, not normally where he likes to go these days. 5.2 kilometers to go. There can be no further hesitation from these riders. They've got to get organised if they have any chance of holding off the peloton. Surely it's beyond their compass, but if this is holding steady at 30 seconds, well, they have to at least believe, and they have to continue to work. And the wind coming from the right-hand side, well, I think that's perhaps a lot of the reason that these riders are feeling it now. There's just a little bit of crosswind. It's not particularly a heavy wind today, but I tell you what, there aren't too many hedges in the Netherlands, and the tiniest amount of wind can feel like a lot in this countryside. Bunch behind, 26 seconds.
Yeah, this gap coming down fairly quickly now. Now we're onto this main roads, and nobody's kind of blocking the roads. You've got a lot of the teams able to move up towards the front, organise their lead outs, and the gap come down again with 20 seconds, 4.5 kilometres to go. These 5 riders, Bono, De Vries, Lieberg, Van Gotham and Bakker, just kind of hanging on to a tenuous lead.
Tenuous lead. The left-hander might be to their advantage. Just a little bit of a tailwind for a little while, but it's a little bit of respite for not too long, I think. 13 seconds now suggests that the peloton are going to mop them up well inside the final few kilometres as the late attacks start and begin. Van Lerberg is the man that tries to distance his teammates, his well, erstwhile breakaway companions, not teammates. Van Gotham it is who covers that one for Team Rompot. Matteo Bono next up. Backart meanwhile in the main bunch behind. And Farah sitting on a teammate's wheel, so dimension data, would they ask Farah to sprint?
No, big case. Nathan Haas is right up there with Tyler Farah, and I think they'll be looking at Edvald Boasson Hagen, the Norwegian champion. But it's the team of LottoNL-Jumbo, you know, a Dutch team. Big pressure on them and big pressure on the Dutch champion. He rode well in the recent Tour of Britain, so they'll be trying to give him the best possible lead out, and he's already shown that he's fast enough to try and pull this off for them today.
LottoNL-Jumbo on the right-hand side. Van Gotham goes again from the early break, and LottoNL-Jumbo have lined up nicely on the right-hand side. The yellow jerseys, they've got the Dutch champions jersey towards the back of that group. They've lost a rider now as they maintain position towards the front. Van Gotham wants to be the last man standing. De Vries wants to prevent him. Inside the final 3 kilometres of stage 1 of the Eneco Tour for 2016. The bunch now mop up the early breakaway group. It's been a brave effort, but it's been nicely controlled by the peloton, and the breakaway riders will dutifully move to one side or the other of the road and allow the peloton to charge through in the centre of the picture. Team Tinkoff have got themselves into position. They've got the world champion in a nice position. Peter Sagan is thereabouts.
Yeah, it's probably one of the best positions to actually be in. He's right in the middle of the arrowhead formation and getting shelter from you know, left and right. Sometimes you cannot get out, but you know, he's one of these riders that is very good at manoeuvring himself.
Yeah, he so often had to do it for himself in sprint finishes, especially where it might have been a bit rolly terrain before that. But Tinkoff are in good shape. They've got riders to try and help the world champion. You see the Norwegian champion's jersey as well from Edvald Boasson Hagen, so he clearly fancies getting involved in this sprint. Team Katusha in the red with the white K have moved over to the left-hand side of the road to try and mirror what is happening with the Française de Jeu squad. Française de Jeu squad going to the front on the left-hand side of the road in the white and blue, looking after Arnaud Demar. They have belief. The French team are going to charge through the final 2,000 metres. On the right-hand side now, it's Orica Bike Exchange. Orica Bike Exchange. Will it be Caleb Ewan? Will it be Michael Matthews? We believe it's Caleb Ewan that they're going to try and project into perfect position. And Orica Bike Exchange have timed their move to the front. Not too much sight of late of Edix Quickstep.
It's constant movements and you know, very difficult times when you get a long straight road like this. Very difficult. Bernie Iso doing a terrific job looking after Edvald Boasson Hagen, but Française de Jeu, they get pushed out of it. Now they're back in it. Orica Bike Exchange on the right hand side, but Groenewegen, the Dutch champion, is battling for a wheel. He's got no teammates to help him. Just as we say that, one of his teammates is looking for him. He grabs that wheel because you don't really want to battle at this moment. The world champion came out, 1 kilometre to go, still anybody's game.
Anybody's game indeed in the final stage, or first stage of Eneco Tour, as Team Katusha, they've been right, they've been left. Some riders are off on the dirt on the right hand side of the road. Team Katusha are leading out Alexander Kristoff. They've also got Edvald Boasson Hagen for company, sitting fourth wheel behind those red jerseys. The white jerseys of Française de Jeu on the right-hand side. Here come LottoNL trying to set it up for Andre Greipel. Where are Edix Quickstep? They've been anonymous for the last while, but you can bet they're going to be thereabouts inside the final 500 meters. Orica Bike Exchange go in the center. Here comes Giacomo Nizzolo, the Italian champion, in the center of picture. Has he launched too early? Here comes Edvald Boasson Hagen inside the final couple of 100 meters, but going for the line and surely going to get it. It's not going to be Boasson Hagen. It is indeed going to be Dylan Groenewegen who gets the victory. Dylan Groenewegen gets the success, and we'll celebrate for LottoNL-Jumbo, the home nation, the home national champion, and it has been perfectly presented for Dylan Groenewegen to take a famous victory in stage 1 of the Eneco Tour. Wow, that was a long lead out, wasn't it? Riders moving left and right.
Oh, that was a horrible sprint, that one. And, you know, shaking of the head, he had to fight for that. He really had to fight for it. But Groenewegen, the Dutch champion, comes up trumps. They did try to help him as much as he could, but he shook his head there. That was a very dangerous sprint and very messy sprint, just similar to we had last year. When Viviani won, but it was a blanket finish in the end. Bouhanni was coming up very quickly, but Edvald Boasson Hagen was the person that led out from about 300 metres to go, and you cannot help yourself. Here we see it now, still battling. Kristoff is having the best lead out at this moment in time on the left hand side. Boasson Hagen decides to go down the middle. At this point, Nizzolo's coming up there. Groenewegen, it looked like Kito was there, but he couldn't get out. Sagan, I don't know where Sagan comes. On the right hand side, you see the bulletin reds. Bouhanni coming up very fast to take second place. I think Sagan may have taken third, with a Norwegian fourth and fifth with Kristoff and Boasson Hagen, but well, I do not have a clue where Sagan came from, but he threads his way through this peloton very nicely. But in the end, it was the Dutch champion Groenewegen that comes up trumps, as you know, another shake of the head just behind for Caleb Ewan. Sometimes you can come up and get the perfect place with a kilometre to go, but get swept away and others come up.
What about that? That was an absolutely fabulous sprint. When you look to get about 10 different eyewitness reports on what that final 3 kilometres was like, I would imagine there would be a fair few expletives involved. It was busy, it was hectic, it was certainly entertaining. It was wonderfully productive for Dylan Groenewegen, the stage 1 winner into Bolsward, the local man, 23 years of age, and it's been a great season for him. Plenty of wins, most lately and most recently, of course, stage win in the Tour of Britain a couple of weeks ago, stage win in the 3 days of West Flanders. Make a list. It's been pretty impressive stuff throughout the year from Dylan Groenewegen, and that's a very significant addition to his palmarès. So the early leader in the race, he'll take 10 bonus seconds into tomorrow's stage, which is of course a time trial, less suited to his talents. Groenewegen, it's already been a successful Eneco Tour for him. And he would bet against him for the World Championships. We've been talking about the Worlds for much of the afternoon. Its increasing proximity makes it looming large on the horizon. And the Netherlands have a contender. 23 years of age, will he get the long distance of the World Championships? He's got the 185 kilometers of this first stage of the Eneco Tour with impressive facility. His LottoNL-Jumbo squad setting himself up nicely, and he looked after his own interests inside the final couple of kilometers to take a beautiful victory. Groenewegen accepts the congratulations of his LottoNL-Jumbo teammates. He's delivered absolutely perfectly. And so many teams will be left frustrated after that one, as is always the case with sprint finishes. We wait for full confirmation. There you have it, stage 1 Into Bolsward, taken by Dylan Groenewegen ahead of Nacer Bouhanni. Peter Sagan gets up for third ahead of the Norwegian duo Boasson Hagen and Kristoff. Nizzolo led it out, had to be satisfied with sixth ahead of Demar Gardini, Kittel and Roy Jans. And Marcel Kittel back in ninth. I wonder, perhaps still feeling the effects of that illness in Championship of Flanders just a couple of days ago. Let's have another look at it. It was messy. And look at Sagan on the right-hand side, miles back.
Look him at the bottom of the picture. Look where he is. That's what I'm saying. I cannot believe he comes up the left-hand side. Boasson Hagen, you know, is already sprinting, and absolutely amazing to see he get up there in third place.
Peter Sagan gets up for third and clearly has big ambitions in the Eneco Tour. He wasn't left wanting, was he? He didn't give up on that one all the way to the line. Neither did Dylan Groenewegen.
Dylan in het rood en blauw, eerste dag in eigen land. Met dit deelnemersveld en dan winnen. Mooier wordt het niet, hè?
Nee, zeker een World Tour koers en dan ja, in eigen land. Zoals een Nederlandse ploeg en dan winnen, dat is natuurlijk heel erg mooi.
Ik zag je even je hoofd schudden. Geloofde je het zelf niet?
Nou ja, het doel was om in een etappe te winnen, dus dan gelijk de eerste rit doen. Dat ja, maakt het heel mooi.
Well, he said the team worked very, very well for me to help me get this victory.
Ik heb gewonnen. En je kijkt om je heen en dan komt Greipel langs en Kittel langs. En ja, het is toch een teken, je kan ze allemaal pakken dan.
Ja, zeker in de Tour kregen we veel kritiek dat het steeds niet lukte. En nu, ja, nu staan we er wel en winnen we wel, dus dat ja, maakt het heel mooi. Alle sprinters doen niet mee, dus ja, dan winnen we.
Well, it's a very important victory for me to take in front of the best sprinters in the world.
Ja, alle sprintersritten willen we gewoon meedoen. Maar eerst gaan we hiervan
sure to
genieten,
be
dit is
part of this massive sprint is a big moment for me.
International viewers, your first win here in your own country. You're the champion of the Netherlands. How does it feel if you win then today?
Yeah, it's a World Tour race in my hometown. So yeah, there's a really nice feeling. We work hard and try it again with the team today. So yeah, we did it, and yeah, I'm very happy.
He's happy, why wouldn't he be? Groenewegen puts it together absolutely perfectly.
The thing at this stage, I still can't believe Sagan, who's battling. You can also see in the left-hand side, no room for Greipel. Bouhanni was there. Where did the lead out for Lotto Soudal go? Where did the lead out go for Ethics Quickstep go? Blanket finish in the end. You know, so many sprinters right in there. Modolo, I think, up there for Lamprey. But good win by Groenewegen. It shows that his form from the Tour of Britain has progressed into the Eneco Tour.
He's held it nicely. So too is Peter Sagan. Disappointment for German fans, really, because Andre Greipel nowhere after all the work that Lotto Soudal had done. So it's, but then it was one of those messy sprints, and they don't always suit Andre Greipel. But he'll have battles and opportunities to come in the next few days. Time trial tomorrow, as I said, and then a couple of sprint opportunities after that. Well, that was the conclusion. 5 riders out front. Eventually comes down to the anticipated bunch sprint. Stage 2 we'll have tomorrow. It's 1500 CET. That's 2 p.m. if you're in Ireland or Britain, and it's a time trial. 9.6 kilometers. Could go a long way to deciding the overall destination of honours in the Eneco Tour for 2016. Well, the man who will wear the yellow skin suit into tomorrow's stage is Dylan Groenewegen. Great stage. Please do join us again for tomorrow's stage. Myself and Brian, it's goodbye for now.